So, our first guest is Anna Dow. I think her last name is pronounced Dow, but she has a memoir, and her memoir is about her growing up doing lots of globe trotting, and she has a background from a Mali, Malian. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but because it's not Somali, it's Mali. But her grandmother was from Mali, and she talks about all the cultural experiences she had, and she ended up in New York City. So, Anna, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much. It's so good to finally meet you face to face. How are you?
I'm doing great. And now, did I say it right, Malian?
Absolutely.
Okay, your grandmother was from Mali. And now, were you born in the United States?
No, ma'am. I was born in France.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
so I had quite an adventure. Uh, my parents met in Mali, fell in love
Okay.
with Mali, and then went to study in France. And that's where I was born. And then shortly after that, they separated, and Mali was colonized by France.
That's what
That's
I was going
why
to ask about that. So
that's
that,
why the working language is French,
okay.
but our national language is Bambara. And I feel that I was privileged to kind of grow up in an area where tradition and modern seem to have found a way to cohabit. So that in some instance, when I went to visit my grandmother, it was the traditional way of living, with the elders telling stories and kind of the elders at that time, most of them didn't go to school and didn't know how to read or write. But there is a saying that there are a lot of illiterate people in Mali, but there are no ignorant people in Mali because they have been taught by the way of the elders, centuries and centuries of wisdom, acquired knowledge that each generation had the duty to transmit to the other one. That was on my grandmother's side. On my father's side and mother's side, I went to school. I went to the French school. I learned to read, I learned to write, but I believe that it's the storytelling that I experience from my elders that actually gave me the love of for storytelling and later on writing.
Right. So that oral tradition, we transferred that from the motherland when we came here, and we still practice some of that here. Um, and I've heard several different authors, or just, well, people who've written books or authors who've been on the show that are from different parts of Africa talk about the elders and how they would tell stories. And a lot of there's some African tales that actually cross countries, from not necessarily from one country, but they're told in different countries, and they made their way to the United States through storytelling.
Yes. I may I call you Gwen, by the way,
Yeah,
or
please
would you like
do.
to be called me Gwen?
Please
Uh,
do.
I would like to be, no, I want to be mindful.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the elders, that was a school on its own
Mm-hmm. Yes.
because it's everything that you are not taught in school. Since everything is observation and there is this understanding that everything is intertwined, the universe is one big web. And in that web, the elder's responsibility is to teach you how to find your seat, how to sit comfortably so that you go through your journey without being unbearable for yourself and for others. And so, in doing so, there are teachings. How do you compromise without losing your integrity? how do you learn to know yourself and what are the values that you hold dear so that no matter what happens, no matter the temptations or the challenges, you might have doubts, but there comes a point where when it comes time to make a choice, you really don't lose your way. And
Mm.
so the value is patience, first of all, and sitting quietly. I think that we learn patience and sitting quietly by just listening to the stories because we weren't allowed to interrupt during the storytelling. So
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
wait.
Now that used to be something that we practiced in the United States, that children didn't interrupt elders.
Absolutely.
But that hasn't been taught to enough. I won't say not at all, but enough of the younger generations of today. They don't have the same level of respect, and they're not the same boundaries
No.
that that I had. Because
Mhm.
the respect for the elders was, it was understood, but it was like after God,
Yeah.
that was second.
Yeah.
And everybody acted that way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it
um
was pure fear. By the way, it was pure fear, right? After God, it was really pure
yes,
fear because there
yes,
was no good outcome coming from being disrespectful to an elder. There was
yes,
just no good outcome.
right. The truth. If you don't respect your parents, let's say as those elders, if you don't respect your parents, you're not going to respect authority, which means
Absolutely.
you're not going to be successful because
Absolutely.
you have to bow to the authority of somebody in this world.
Yeah.
God, starting with God, but any job you go to, any school you go to, anywhere you go, you have to respect authority. And if you don't, you're gonna have problems your whole life.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have serious problems. And you
Absolutely.
might lose your life behind it, you know. Um, so tell us a little bit about Mali. We don't hear a lot about Mali in the news, or
Well,
that's not one of the, you hear mostly about Nigeria or South Africa or some other countries, but we don't hear a lot about Mali.
no, because Mali, first of all, is a very poor country in terms of maybe wealth, but in terms of culture, it's extremely rich. And unfortunately, one of the things that happened, and it's I think it's a world, um, is that we have technology and um, television and all these accesses have been great in one hand, but on the other hand, they gave the illusion that getting rich or kind of leading a certain life of wealth was the answer to all the problems, right? And it's not just Europe or America, it's Africa everywhere. But you don't hear about Mali, and yet I'll bet anything that you have heard of Timbuktu.
Yes, yes.
Timbuktu is in Mali.
Okay, well, that's new information. A lot of people don't even know Timbuktu is a real place.
Yes,
People
it's
think
a
it's like
real
a fictional
place.
place, but it's a real place. I didn't know what country it was in.
It's in Mali, and the
Mali,
reason
okay.
why it is Timbuktu is the well of Buktu. Basically, the northern part of Mali is desert, and during the 13th and 14th century, it became a scholar center because people from the northern part of Africa, Morocco, even Europe came, and there was an exchange. There was trades, exchange of salt, what you call it, and other goods for the gold of Mali. And
Oh,
if you heard the history of the 14th century king of Mali, the richest man on earth, Kankou Musa, who during the pilgrimage from Mali to Mecca distributed so much gold that the price of gold plummeted for years.
oh, okay.
And so it's that rich culture that I was privileged to kind of grow up in. And that once I came to the US, because I arrived in the US about a little bit more than 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I had my head filled with things that I wanted to do. I had a plan, and if plan A didn't work, I had a plan B, plan C, plan D, until basically it came to a screeching halt when I basically had a burnout. And then the question was, why did I come? What is it that I want? And why do I want the things that I want? But I didn't know all that. And so finding Lalla's Anna is basically the journey of my conversation with my grandmother, who then uh, took me when I was at my lowest and didn't have a clue of what to do next, because the American dream wasn't the American dream. And not knowing where to go from that, she sat me down and said, okay, it's time now to quiet the mind. You have listened to everybody on earth tell you how to be, what to do, and who to be. But who do you want to be and why?
Okay. Now, at what point did this happen?
This happened about, I would say, about 20 years ago.
Okay. So it's in your adult life.
It's in, oh yes, in my very adult life,
Okay.
when I had, again, to me, coming to the United States, I fell in love with New York. And for me, New York has always been the place to be. It was bubbling. It's still bubbling, by the way, with a lot of energy, with a lot of possibilities. Anything you can really, anything can happen here. But the danger of anything can happen here. The other flip side of it is that if you're not grounded in something really strong, that is become your barometer, that become your compass, you can get lost.
Okay.
And
I can see how that would happen. In fact, I'm going to be in New York this weekend, and I saw that you were signing your books at the Harlem
yes,
Book
ma'am.
Fair.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the show, Rhonda and I, she's my co-host, we're going to be there at the Harlem Book Fair,
Yes.
and we're going to be promoting the show. But we also have our literary themed T-shirts, and she has some of her books. I'm not bringing my books because I'm flying, so books are just too heavy to work with when
Mhm.
you're flying. I've done it once, and I said never again. But I'm excited about being there, and I've been in New York, but it's been a long time, and I've never been to the Harlem Book Fair. So, but I've known the organizer for several years
Mhm.
and excited about it. So, oh, now you're going to be on the main stage
Yes,
reading
I'm going to
one
be
of the pieces.
where it's going to be under our publisher's tent, Wordy.
Okay,
And I'm going to be reading and signing because there was some conflict with the time, but I'll be there. I'll be there all day, but particularly reading and signing between 12 and 1.
okay. Yeah, well, we'll be there all day long.
Oh,
So,
great. It'll be great to
and
see you.
and even though Rhonda, my co-host, is not on um, yet because she ran late with work,
Mhm.
uh, one of our viewers, Stephanie Burnham, she's a self-appointed helper. I appreciate you, Stephanie. She puts things in the chat, like the links and things like that.
Mhm.
Because that's the role Rhonda plays, as well as interviewing. And so the wordy link for your information is in the chat. Do you
Thank
have a
you.
copy of your book handy?
Oh, yes.
You
If
can
I
show it.
can you see it?
Yes. Okay. Pull it closer to you. Pull it closer
Close
to
to
you.
me?
Yes, closer to you. Yes. Okay. So it's finding Lala,
Lala, Anna.
Layla or Lala?
Lala.
Lala's
Lala,
Anna.
Anna.
And Lala is your grandmother's
Was my
name?
grandmother. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So she's the one that told you you needed to take a moment
Yeah,
to
she reminded me.
reflect.
She reminded me that I was. It's almost as if just being out there uh and running so much for so many things that I had lost touch of my own self, meaning that sense of belonging, that sense of, wait a minute, who are you at the end of the day? And she was responsible for reminding me that, to kind of not pursue things just because they look good, but to know why I'm pursuing them. And the most difficult or the most challenging thing in a quest in my quest for me was to answering the whys. Why do you want the things that you want?
Okay.
And then in the scheme of that, once you get it, or once you have it, what is it that you hope it will bring you and why? What is it that you will do with it and why? So it kind of brings full circle for me at the end to kind of give me a sense of belonging. I'm a legacy. I am the one, and like everybody, I like telling that people, I said, please remember that each and every one of us is here because somebody survived or somebody thrived,
Yes. Yes.
right?
And somebody prayed.
And somebody prayed.
Somebody
And it's
prayed.
just one person. It's generation of generation of
Yes, on
generation of
top.
people who have survived,
Yeah.
prayed, and thrived.
And sacrificed.
The
It's a lot of,
sacrifice.
you know,
Exactly.
a lot of delayed gratification got us where we are now.
So if we are standing on the shoulders of all those who came before us,
Yes.
then life has to be better than just the acquisition of material things.
Of stuff.
Nobody's but good.
Right.
It has to be more than that.
Yes.
And so why are we here? Why am I here? What is it that I can do that is going to continue or kind of take at another level, the work that those who have come before me have done? What is
That,
my legacy going to be?
well, that's something good to contemplate and plan for, and not just think that it will just happen.
Yes.
It We have to be intentional
Yes,
about
absolutely.
making it happen.
Yes.
And I believe where there's a will, there's a way,
Mhm.
but you have to have the will and you have to be willing to put forth the
Yes,
effort. Um,
absolutely.
and so your book is now where your memoir, where what aspect of your life or what period in your life does the book start with? Some people do the I was born so and so and then continue. Some people kind of start in the middle and then move forward, or they talk about a crucible or an arc in their life, something, it could be tragic
Yeah.
or and triumphant in the
Mhm.
end
Mhm.
that occurs. So how does your memoir start?
Uh, it starts with the transition of Lalla.
Okay. Okay.
Almost as if symbolically there was a passing of a baton, right?
Okay. Mm.
Uh, she made a promise when everything was chaotic in my life, and I was like, she was really the backbone, but I kind of leaned on before I had faith, or before faith became a central part of my life. And her promise was, I will always be here until you find your way. And so after I went through this initiation, I call it initiation, or rite of passages, and she was sure now that I had found my way, that I could go on without leaning on her or without looking for her to answer some questions. That's when she transitioned.
So she was
And
hanging on until
yes,
she
she
hanging.
hung on until she was sure that I was okay.
Oh, well, and that's something that I've heard repeatedly from people about elders who they know they're dying, they kind of hang on until
Yeah.
uh, they're able to either talk to someone that's important or pass information that's important.
Yeah.
So, when you went to New York,
Mhm.
what period of your life, how old were you, and what did you end up pursuing, like for career wise?
When I first came to New York, I think I pursued everything that I could get because basically it was get a job. And I was in my early 30s. And I just decided, I was working in Mali, and I just decided, you know what, I'm bored. I want a change. And so I had a conversation with my grandmother, as always, and she was like, the world is too vast for you to stay in one place if you're not happy. Nobody always walk with you, right? And so that gave me the wing to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to try this New York thing. And when
Okay. Okay.
and
Now, did you know anybody in New York?
my sister was working here, and so
Okay.
I could land. When I landed, I ended up living with her.
Okay.
I did some babysitting. What did I do? In the beginning, I was a secretary. I was a salesperson. I was an accountant part-time. I did all kind of job. At the same time, I was writing. And what was funny is that storytelling has always been a passion, something that I wanted to do. But when I first started, my English was really like, I'm still learning to properly do it, but it was really difficult at the time. And I remember the rejection letters at the time was like, oh, this is cute, or this is nice, or get call us when you learn how to really write it in proper English. And but for some reason, when I couldn't give up, I have tons of rejection letters, like for the years. This book is a 20-year in the making.
Okay.
Simply for two reasons. Simply because some of the experience I hadn't lived, some of the experience that I write about, I hadn't lived them. And the first chapter starts with the transition of Lalla. So the book really came together. I had all the pieces together after Lalla transition.
Okay.
But for the years, I kept, submitting and trying to see anybody would be interested. And it was always like, oh, interesting idea, but it needs so much work. And so it was also putting up with my ego and accepting that I didn't know better or that I didn't know it all, and accepting criticism and accepting people coming in to edit the work and accepting people coming and giving me ideas, and then finding the balance between the criticism that I could take because they didn't change anything in the integrity of a story, and the criticism that I had to put aside because they would change the story and make it something that wasn't me.
Okay. Well, don't now the rejection letters that you received, that's a common thing for authors when
Yes.
they're first trying to get going or trying to get published or trying to find an agent or trying to find a publisher that will look at their work or they I hear stacks of rejection letters. I hear that from just about all of them. If they pursued uh, to be with a major publisher.
Mhm.
And so I haven't experienced that because I haven't pursued that. I have 15 books, but I self-publish my books. And so because I'm not good at rejection, not to say other people are, but
Yeah,
but
this is good.
I really am not, I don't, if I get rejected, like if I got 3 rejection letters, I probably would quit.
Oh, okay.
So I don't, if I'm not good at something, and my books are very good, but they're not necessarily what the big publishers would consider to be quote marketable, or
Mhm, mhm,
they're very
mhm,
specific, you know.
mhm.
So but some people continue and continue on. I applaud them for that because I could not do that. But it takes a lot of fortitude to keep going in the face of that rejection.
Yes.
But in the end, you have become more established. You you've you're past that hurdle. That
Yeah.
was a hurdle that you had to get over. And so, and now you have your book. And
Yes.
now, when did the book come out exactly?
It came out this April 22nd of this year.
Of this year. Okay, so
Yes.
it's still a new book.
Yes.
And how has the response been to it?
The response has been good because I am very well aware that because one of the things that was instrumental for me was to be uh, as candid as possible. So
Okay.
it is a profoundly personal journey that I'm sharing with the reader. And the doubts and the questions, the pain and the anger are all in there.
Okay.
And how through it all, basically, um, by the grace of God, and also because I was fortunate, and I'm very grateful for that. When I look at everything that happened, I had good people in my life. And sometimes I think that I took that for granted. The fact that I had good, decent people, even those who hurt me the most in my family, at the core, they are good, decent people who were just also handling their own insecurities and their own pain that they haven't dealt with. But you see that, I think, with time. And so, like I said, one of the things that I pride is that it's deeply, deeply, deeply personal. And I think that it was, for me, it was the only way to connect. It was the only way to give the story purpose.
Okay. Well, Anna, we are at the end of our time. So if you could show your book again
I will.
to
Thank
the
you.
audience, it's called Finding Lalla's Anna.
Yes.
And the book is available at
Amazon.
Amazon.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to be at the Harlem Book Fair this Saturday,
Yes.
um, check out Anna.
Absolutely.
She's gonna be in the wordy tent,
Yes.
and she's going to be signing her book from 12 to 1. So I hope to run into you while we're there. We're gonna be
I
there
hope so
and
too.
hope to run
And
into you.
just
But
one more thing. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you for
Thank
being a
you.
guest.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure talking with you and having all the email and everything. So thank you. Gratitude.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and continued success with your book.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Okay, have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.